Okay, so let's look at the hamstrings, because it's actually really quite rare for any football player that I know, especially soccer players, to have hamstring issues. But Bianca's just informed me that she doesn't actually have hamstring issues, but that is quite rare, so trust me. So we're going to look at about how we approach the load and the issues surrounding the hamstring. Keep in mind, once again, as I've always said, most hamstring issues will become because of an imbalance or a holding pattern around the hip. So make sure, once again, if we're going to clear out any of those restrictions that are in the hip themselves, okay? To address the hamstrings themselves, I always start with the medial hamstrings, okay? So what we're going to do here, once again, I've got Bianca into a shortened position, which will actually relax these muscles here. We're going to engage, obviously, semimembranosus and semitendinosus. So coming in with a flat, once again, soft fist, we're going to sink into the tissue, engage it, draw it up, and then we can start to do some really, really slow but purposeful myofascial release work or myofascial tension work. So I'm going to work the length of that medial hamstring, just taking it slightly in and out of range, all the way up, and making sure that we engage the upper hamstring attachments, okay? Same again, lock in, work our way all the way up. Now, I have got some other passive release techniques that I've done in the past where we're taking the client's hip through range of movement into hip flexion, and that works just as well if we're trying to improve the range of movement. But what we're doing here is we're probably dealing more with the load issues, okay? So we're not looking at changing that range of movement because we're trying to deal with more of a load issue. And as we well know, any issues with the hip will present, and basically what you'll see is the hamstrings will act as like a barometer. So there'll be some inconsistency. So most of the time these restrictions will happen in probably either the upper or the lower part of the hamstring, depending on whether or not what position they are. So if they're in a running position, so that means that they're on the wing, then they'll probably have more issues to do with probably the lower part of the hamstrings as opposed to the upper part. Okay, so you can see how we're working here. Now we can swap the leg over, okay? So I'm just going to turn the hip in, okay? Which means we're going to place our direction into the lateral part of the hamstrings this time, which will be biceps fem. So biceps fem is extraordinarily important when we're talking about, obviously, restrictions to do with sacrotuberous ligament and all the fascia that blends into the sacrum itself. So once again, just tipping the hip up, taking all that tissue from the hamstring all the way into the hip.